Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming along. Thanks for turning up. We love to talk about IT and we love to talk about IT to our clients. But this particular talk to me is something very exciting. It's something that I've been working on for many, many years, and I think we've got a concept here that is really going to make a big difference to all the people in the room, all the businesses in the room. So I'd like to go through and explain to you what SLAs are. I'd like to go through and explain to you how it will have an impact on your business. So it's something that's dear to my heart and something that I'm very passionate about, and hopefully at the end of it you'll be able to see why it's something that I feel so passionately about the entire IT world changing. In 5 years' time we won't be talking about whether you have a break fix or an SLA type arrangement, and I'll explain those terms as we go through. What you'll be doing is you'll be saying that we have an arrangement that's a standard IT arrangement, and that will be an SLA. So I'm sure you're, from the background and from most of the businesses in the room, we've dealt with you for a number of years, you're relatively familiar with AXXIS Technology as a business. I started AXXIS Technology 19 years ago, 1989, just after the last recession. So it was a silly time to start a business, but I saw there was a need for IT servicing, and it's evolved and changed over many years. But I've learned a lot in that 19 years about what is important to IT or to a business being serviced by an IT business. And we've kept changing that model and kept moving things around as we've gone down the path. We've certainly been successful, depending how you measure success, but one of the things we've done is we've picked up 20 major awards over the years. The most recent award that we've won was the Australian IT Small Business of the Year for 2008. So that's every IT business in Australia is eligible to enter that. So I think we're getting a few things right, and obviously the people in this room, being clients of ours, obviously think we're doing a few things right as well. So let's go through and have a bit of a look at what's happening in the entire IT servicing world. The first thing I like to do is just have a bit of a look at what we know at the moment, what we know in terms of what's happening in the IT world. IT systems, and I look back at that 19 years that I've been in this business, IT systems in general are becoming more complex, but they're also becoming much more mission critical. If I go back even, say, 10 years, we would have a client that might have had a point of sale system, and that point of sale system might have been a situation where if the system failed or if something went wrong with that system, they'd pull out an old docket book out of a bottom drawer and they'd write out that docket book and everything would be okay. But now we're finding that systems are so critical. There's stock controls relying on it. A lot of the times your FBOS systems are relying on going through your IT system. You want to be able to know your P&Ls at the end of the day as soon as you're finished. It's becoming something that you just can't survive without in your business in a day-to-day environment. The technology that we have today is really changing the way we live, the way we work, the way we communicate with each other. Who would have thought 10 years ago that the most common method of communication would have been sitting there on a little tiny keyboard typing away a text message? That seems to be now the most prevalent method of communication that exists, not just in the teenagers, not just in the youth, but a lot of people of all different age groups are using text messaging. It's changing the way we communicate in terms of email. That's something that's really taken off. It's the killer application. And in terms of using that email, in terms of the way we might use email, it's obviously something that people say, I need to have that application up and running. It goes back to that first point, that it's absolutely critical to the operation of a business. So it's changing the way we live, changing the way we work, it's changing the way we can go home earlier now and work from home rather than being stuck in an office situation. In terms of your businesses, well, staff that you might employ to manage your IT system, this critical, this complex, this absolutely crucial component of your business, they sometimes like to take holidays. Now, I know, I'd love to see the Australian laws changed so that we didn't allow staff to take holidays, but it's in there. We've got to let them have 4 weeks holiday every single year. They take sick days. Sometimes they might use several sick days. They might use up all of their, say, 5 or 10 sick days a year. Other things happen, like sometimes your IT manager changes jobs. He leaves the organisation. They talk about IT staff. The average length of employment for an IT staff member it's 18 months. So you can rely, on average, your IT manager rolling over every 18 months. Then there's a whole process of training them, the whole process of going through and letting them learn your organisation again. So in terms of you, as in your business, having a single IT person that's looking after your entire infrastructure puts a fair amount of risk in your business in that area. The other stats that are quite interesting, and these are very recent pieces of research I've done, Australians now annually, in terms of their expenditure on IT, annually now, we're spending twice as much on PCs as pizzas. Now, how often do you have a pizza? How often do you order a pizza on a Friday night to watch the footy? How often do you have some friends around and order some pizza? You think it's just a common everyday thing that happens. We're spending twice as much, 2 times the amount on PCs as we are on pizzas. It's really getting into our everyday society. What about cars? We're now buying twice as many cars, sorry, other way around. We're now buying twice as many PCs as cars. Again, when you think about the motor cars are everywhere. Everyone just becomes used to the fact that a motor car is going to be used in their day-to-day life. PCs are twice as prevalent in society. So it just gives you a bit of a snapshot about how much we rely on IT and how much it's really sunk its claws into our day-to-day living. It's just something that we take as granted or take as given. Let's look now at world research. In world research, there's some interesting information that's come about why you should be managing your system very closely. Microsoft did a research paper last year. There were 3,500 software vulnerabilities that Microsoft worked out that had been exposed in the first half of 2007 alone. Now, they're not just all Microsoft packages. That's across the whole gambit of software that's available. So it's an incredible number of software vulnerabilities that are exposed. Now, you may not have all of those applications installed on your systems, but there's a fair chance you're going to have a lot of those packages installed. So you need to keep patching and keep up to date with all those patches, or you're exposing your system and your data to potential attacks from the outside world. Now, antivirus is an interesting one. I kind of talk about antivirus in a way that it's a bit like something that we've almost conquered. It's something a bit like some disease, leprosy. We don't see much leprosy in Australia anymore. We've fairly well conquered that disease. I'm sure it appears here and there, but in general, we're on top of it. Viruses, because people have been so focused on viruses, I think we're pretty well on top of viruses as well. But it's interesting. In a survey done by ICSA, or some research done, 83% of people use an antivirus package. That's a lot. I would like it to be 100%. But of those 83%, only 73% update their definitions. Now, that's a bit scary. Some people then load the antivirus package on. So if you're doing some of the IT work in your organisation, you load the antivirus package on, you say, there we go, I've put antivirus on. I know that I'm meant to put that on. I've done it. Job done. But if you don't update the definitions, you're still exposed because new viruses are being released all the time. So 73% of people update their definitions. From the research that ICSA did, 6% of people in the research still saw that they had some PCs infected at some stage. Now, we don't see it very often. We're very focused on making sure people update their virus signatures, making sure that people have the latest virus signatures available. So we really don't see that. But 6%, that's still a fairly large number in my opinion of people that have some sort of attack or some sort of infection from a virus. And of those, this is the number that you really need to remember, 69% said that they lost productivity. And you do. If you get an infection from a virus, if you get an attack from a virus, you're going to have some loss in productivity. So even though antivirus, and I picked on that deliberately, antivirus software, everyone thinks, yes, we've got it on there, we've all got it covered now, you still see people losing data and productivity because of virus attacks. So you can't just sit back and be too blasé about it and think that everything's going to be okay. In terms of outsourcing, obviously some of these things I'm leading to are leading to SLAs and outsourcing. Some research done by Forrester said that outsourcing saves between 12 and 17%. Now, that wasn't just the cost of one staff member over and above the cost of outsourcing. That was how much productivity, how much gain, or what are the gains that you achieve in your organisation through outsourcing, and how does that compare to using internal resources to do that? So 12 to 17%, which is quite a significant number. If you think about now how much you might pay one person in your organisation, if you can get a 12 to 17% saving on that, it's quite a significant number. Some people have said to me, is this SLA thing a bit of a passing fad? Is it something that we're seeing now as a bit of a kind of a snowballing effect, but in a couple of years' time we'll all forget about that? Well, research has shown out of Gartner, and again this out of the US, that the MSP market is growing year on year over the last 3 years by 10%. Now that shows to me that we're on the right track. It's not something that's a flash in the pan. It's not something that is here today, gone tomorrow. It's something that's going to keep growing and keep growing. And I think, again, as I said at the very beginning of the talk, we're not going to talk about SLA versus break fix. It's just going to be the way people have their service work done, have their IT service work done. And the last one, which I just thought was incredible, in the next year, in Australia alone, we're going to add 50 petabytes of data to our storage systems across Australia. There's only 21, 22 million of us. We're going to add 50 petabytes. That's 10 to the power of 15 bytes, if you want to remember back to your old high school mathematics. So that amount of data needs to be managed. That amount of data needs to be backed up. That to me is just an incredible amount of data. So you have to be conscious of that and have to be focused on what you're going to do to make sure you can manage and store and retrieve and really just have somewhere to actually store that data. It's quite an incredible number. So that's a bit of the information from a worldwide perspective, narrowing down to Australia at the end, but it gives you a bit of a snapshot as well as to what's happening across the world. There's still viruses that you need to be conscious of. There's still software vulnerabilities. MSPs, outsourcing, it's all growing, it's all happening. This was an interesting headline I saw. We're about to face, I'm sure you can read it, but I'll read it out to you. We're about to face a demographically driven shortfall in labour that will make the 1990s seem like a minor irritation. Now this is the former chairman of the Commission for Economic Policy in the US. When you start to consider that, and then you start to think about your IT staff internally, what other offers they might be getting, the mining sector's stealing staff all over the place, you start to worry about that critical component of your business resting in the hands of one person. Is that too big a risk for my business to take? And again, that's when you start to look at some strategic relationships, some ways that you might identify that are better to manage your IT. So is an SLA a maintenance contract? A lot of people have asked me that over the years. We've been running SLAs now for near on 4 years. And a lot of people have been asking me, is it just a maintenance contract? I've had a maintenance contract before and that didn't work that well. I didn't like it. Well, just to give you a quick explanation, a maintenance contract is where you have a monthly fee that's paid for a set number of hours. So, as an example, you might say to a client, I'll charge you $500 and I'll give you 5 hours for that. So, say $100 an hour as a round number. So, nothing really changes apart from the fact that you as a client of ours just bought $500. So, we've got some guaranteed income. That's great for us. But you just have an amount of hours that you've just prepaid for, a bit like a prepaid mobile. You're prepaying your minutes, but it's got to be used in that month. If you go over the 5 hours, then we still charge you. We might be incredibly generous and feel like we really want to reward you as a good, ongoing, loyal customer, so we might give it to you at $90 an hour. So we reduce the rate just slightly so that you get a bit of a feeling that we're doing something a bit extra for you. We still do all the work if we were doing a maintenance contract, which again we don't, but if this was the arrangement, you still do the work, or we'd still do the work based around time. So we've got your 5 hours, one of our technicians goes out and spends half an hour at your premises, well there's half an hour of your 5 hours gone. We still go through that process and record all the time. There's no advantage for you if we're really efficient in our work, no advantage for us if we're really efficient in our work. It's basically just ticking off the time as the work is done. The billing is done after all the work is completed. So you have no idea how much of your 5 hours is going to be chewed up by any particular job that we might do. So we go out to do a job, it turns out to be a little bit harder than we thought. We sent the wrong guy, we sent someone too inexperienced, we have to send someone else out there. That's all chewing up your hours. It doesn't seem like that smart a relationship. And most importantly, there's no allowance for under or over. Again, like the prepaid mobile phones. If you go under your 5 hours for the month, well, good luck to us, fantastic. If you go over, well, you still get charged for that. So it's a pretty clumsy sort of arrangement, and it's a step in the right direction to a more progressive service arrangement, but I just feel like it's a little bit clumsy in the way a service arrangement's done. Now what that typically creates in terms of the relationship or the ongoing relationship, it's not great. If we go under the number of hours, so let's use that example I said before, 5 hours. So we only do 2 hours worth of work for you this month. Well, what do you think? You think we just ripped you off. So you think that we're not really servicing you the way we should. So you're pretty annoyed about that. The flip side of that is if we go over, then you still get annoyed because we're going to give you a bill for some extra time. So unless we can predict absolutely perfectly how many hours we're going to do each month, and my name isn't Nostradamus, I don't see any way possible that we're going to have really happy clients every month because we're not going to get it perfectly right as to how many hours work we need to do every month on an ongoing basis. It doesn't allow you, as someone who uses our IT services, to budget. So a maintenance contract just says we're going to charge you a certain number of hours, we're going to keep adding on to it if we need to, so you really can't budget. The only thing you can budget is a minimum, but that's not a great way to budget. Oh, we're going to spend at least this much money this month, but there's no top end to it. I don't know that many accountants and many bankers would be happy with that method of budgeting. It certainly gives you more downtime in your business. Very simply, it's a reactive process. So you're not going to have proactive maintenance, it's just something goes wrong, we'll come along and fix it up, and you're going to be down until we get that thing going. The thing that I find absolutely ridiculous is if we do a really bad job at setting up your network, then we get rewarded. If we set up a fantastic network that's absolutely brilliant and it never has a problem, well, we're not getting to charge any more over the 5 hours we might charge you. If we do a really bad job and we send along guys that don't know what they're doing, then we're getting to charge you more than that 5 hours, so we're getting rewarded for having a bad setup. I don't know if that really seems like that fair a relationship and that fair an arrangement. The thing that really gets me is that we want to be more proactive in what we do. So having a maintenance contract to me is still a reactive arrangement. It still means something goes wrong, oh, we'll fix it up for you. It's never doing anything about trying to prevent things from happening. It's not being proactive. It's just saying something goes wrong, that's it, we'll come along and fix it up for you. And of course, it leads to frustration. And I'm sure you can identify with the woman that's on the screen there. I'm sure you've been on the end of a phone to a support guy at some stage in your lives, and that's the kind of look you've had on your face. Utter frustration with IT. This thing isn't working again. I had someone here last week and it didn't get fixed, and you get really frustrated with IT. And I love IT. I hate people getting frustrated with IT because I think IT is wonderful. But I also understand that there are times it doesn't do what you want it to do. So having that sort of it goes wrong, we'll fix it mentality really doesn't work that well for the average user who's trying to just use their IT in the same way that you want to be able to jump in the car, turn the key and off you go. You don't have to be a mechanic to drive the car. You shouldn't have to be a technician to use a computer. So we try and avoid all of that. So the first thing we did, we had some ideas about what we wanted to do. Then we went out, and I know some of you in the room here participated in this process, and I thank you for that. We went out and we talked to our clients. We thought, what better way to find out what you want in a service arrangement than to ask you? I mean, it seems pretty obvious, I know, but it was something that we had to think about for a while to get to that point. So we sat down with a lot of clients, we had coffees, we had beers, we even had lunches with some of you to really find out what it was that you wanted. The message that came through loud and clear to me was that the clumsy old style maintenance contracts, the ones that I've just described, they weren't what you wanted. Everyone that had used those had some story. I heard one story that I thought was just a classic of the difference or the mentality of that break-fix maintenance contract. One client told me that they had a major problem with a computer one day, And they were using a different IT provider, obviously, apart from AXXIS. And they rang and said, we've got a major problem. One of their technicians came around and he said, oh, your hard drive is full. So you've run out of space, so your server stopped. Okay, well, how long is it going to take to fix this up? Well, we'll have to get some of that data off, put a bigger hard drive in, clean up some data. They went through a process. It was several hours they were down for. The thing that got to the client was they were on a maintenance contract. And it had only been 2 weeks previous to that someone had been out on site doing some other work, using up some of their hours, some of their time, and they'd done some other work on their server. They'd actually noticed and mentioned that the hard drive was a bit full to another technician, but hadn't done anything about it. And that's the whole root of an SLA, is that you try to be proactive rather than be reactive. So there was a classic situation where the technicians knew there was going to be a problem coming up, did nothing about it. Why? Well, they probably wanted to use up some extra time. It might be a bit cynical, but they probably wanted to use up some extra time when they came back to fix up the problem when it eventually occurred. So everyone that I talked to said maintenance contracts are not what you want. There were 4 key things that people wanted in an SLA. The first one was fixed costs. It sounds like a really nice thing, and I didn't really know how I was going to deliver fixed costs to my clients. And we came back, and when I heard that from a few clients, came back and talked to a number of people about it in our organisation, and I said, clients want fixed costs. How are we going to deliver that? And I know my staff and my technicians said, you can't have fixed costs. You don't know what you're going to do for the month. How can you possibly have fixed costs? But that was the message that came through loud and clear. We want fixed costs in a modern service arrangement. We also want guaranteed response times. Clients, and you're all saying the same thing, were understanding enough to say, I don't expect that I know it's going to be fixed in a guaranteed amount of time, because sometimes it's pretty complicated. But I want to know when you're going to respond. I want to know when you're going to be there actually working on our problem, rather than sitting back drinking a cappuccino at the coffee shop waiting to go out to that next job. So guaranteed response times. Another great frustration was that clients had different people turning up to fix up their network on an ongoing basis. And no one seemed to know their network, and sometimes people were even critical of the job done by the last technician because he didn't do it right. So you didn't feel comfortable that someone actually knew your network. So you wanted someone that was more familiar with your network. You wanted someone that actually understood your network to a much greater extent. And the last thing you wanted was regular contact with sales and technical staff. And I know technicians sometimes are a little bit hard to talk to, but you wanted to actually talk to them on a regular basis to find out what was going on. You also wanted regular talk with sales, not to be sold things. You wanted regular talk with sales so that you could go through the process and actually understand what was happening, what was out there, where the IT world was headed. You wanted to be kept up to date. In fact, one guy said to me that he wanted to be his local neighbourhood barbecue expert. He was always frustrated that when he had a neighbourhood barbecue, he'd sit there and he'd be talking about something, and then someone would come along and know all these things about IT, and he had no idea about it. He didn't necessarily want to be able to lead the conversation, but he wanted to understand at least what was going on in IT, and he didn't necessarily want to buy everything that was out there, but maybe if he knew more and understood more, there'd be some other things that he might want to add to his business to help his business be more progressive. So that were the 4 key things, the things that you thought were absolutely critical in an SLA. So, we kind of looked at that and said, wow, that's pretty hard to do, but how are we going to deliver that? What are the things we're going to do? So the whole concept of managed services was then driven by that. And managed services, or SLAs, service level agreements, managed services, really interchangeable. The first thing I wanted to do was to get a great definition of what managed services were, what an SLA was. And this is the definition I came up with. The proactive day-to-day management of IT infrastructure to maintain the optimal performance of the network for a fixed fee. Now that's a quote directly out of a very good book, actually a book written by me on SLAs, so I'm not sure if you're allowed to quote yourself in talks that you're doing, but that was a lot of work that came into that definition. And there were 3 key things in there. The first one is proactive. That's crucial in a modern SLA, in managed services. It's got to be a proactive arrangement. If it's just something where you just say, we're just going to do things when something goes wrong, just fix it then, it's not really rewarding you in taking up a progressive, modern managed services arrangement. It's just the same as it was before and maybe charged differently. So proactive is crucial to it. Optimal performance of the network, that's what we want to deliver. We want to deliver the best performance of the network, the absolute best practice of everything that's done in a network. We want to deliver that to you to make your network run at its absolute peak. And the last thing is for a fixed fee. We want to design a fixed fee that says this is how much we're going to charge you to be proactive and to deliver optimal performance of your network. That's the challenge we set ourselves, and that's what I think we've absolutely designed and what we're absolutely delivering every day out there. So in a modern managed services arrangement, you really need to have proactive maintenance, but also that proactive consultancy. Again, what people ask for, regular contact with sales and technical. So we now deliver, for example, a platinum SLA. We are on site or doing a maintenance check for a client every single month. Now some people think every month, not much goes wrong in a month. Every month our clients are seeing that our technicians are delivering a report that gives them information about their network and things that they might need to change or things to be aware of. But every month they're finding extra things to tweak and modify to make it better. Consultancy, a platinum client has a consultancy every 3 months. So that means that what's changed in the IT world is changing on a regular basis. Every 3 months it's being updated. Now again, 3 months might seem like something that's fairly often. I actually do a radio segment on ABC radio. We do that every fortnight. And when we first talked about that, the DJ that was going through that process with me, that was going to host the segment with me, he said, every fortnight, do you think we should do it every month? Because every fortnight things won't change. I have too much information to give him every fortnight. There is so much information that changes in the entire IT world. I think that segment needs to be a weekly segment because things are changing so quickly and so dramatically. So every month, every 3 months, it scales back for some of the other levels, but it's absolutely critical to have that proactive maintenance and proactive consultancy. The thing that I really like, that puts the pressure on us, is that all of our work is based around outcomes. We call it OBSW, outcome-based service work. So we don't count the hours. We don't say to you, it'll be 3 hours worth of work to do that. We don't say to you, we'll come along and do the work, and however long it takes, that's how much we'll charge you. We say, you need an outcome, you need something fixed, you need something done, you need something added onto your network. Here's the set fee to do that. Now under a true SLA, under a platinum arrangement, that's all done for free. And again, the ultimate outcome is the management of your network. For clients that are on a lower level, some of the things that are done for free. Things that aren't done for free are done based around an outcome. Everything we do has an outcome and we charge based on that outcome. The interesting stat, I did some talks for Microsoft last year, and the interesting stat they gave to me was in relation to the average business in the US, the average business, what they spend on IT on average, and how much productivity they gain out of that expenditure. And I love these figures. The average small business spends 14% of their overall expenditure, excluding wages, on IT. So it's not a huge amount, but it's significant. The productivity gain you get for that 14% expenditure is a 78% on average jump. I'd love to get those same odds when the Melbourne Cup's on. It's a great investment that you put in, but you get a huge benefit out of the back of that. So that's over 5 times the benefit you gain in terms of productivity. So to have an IT operation that's running well, that's efficient, that's managed well, gives you potentially a 78% productivity increase. And the thing that I absolutely love about the overall arrangement is that it's in the best interests of both parties to keep your system running at its peak. I mean, who goes to the doctor when they're healthy? It seems crazy, but isn't that the most logical time to go to the doctor? You go to the doctor when you're feeling sick to have yourself fixed up. But it's in our interests to keep your system running at its peak. If you have a major failure on a Friday night at 6 o'clock when our guys want to go out to the pub, it's a major inconvenience for us as a business, and it's a major inconvenience for you because you might be down for Saturday morning trade that might be very busy. So we want to make your system run as well as possible, and you, as the owner of the network, you want it to run as well as possible as well. It seems obvious, I know, but you want it to run as well as possible. So we both want the same things out of it. And it's interesting, in America at the moment, there are a group of doctors, or a number of groups of doctors that are being formed, called MD VIP. And they do exactly what I said before. They actually see you when you're healthy. You pay them a set amount of money a year. I think the figure is about $2,000. And for that $2,000, they create a wellness plan for you. They schedule in appointments for you. They actually schedule in if you like, dietary appointments where they might go along and identify that you've got some dietary needs that need to be changed, so they'll schedule an appointment with a dietitian with you. They'll actually hassle you to come to the doctor because it's due for your quarterly or your 6 monthly visitation. They want you to come and see them when you're healthy to try and keep you healthy. It sounds really sensible, and that's exactly what we're trying to do in the IT world. So, what are the benefits to you? Let's have a look at some of the things that we're seeing already. I mean, we've been running this for a number of years now, as I mentioned, and we're seeing benefits every day for our clients. With the proactivity and the regular maintenance, we're increasing the uptime of our clients' networks. There is no doubt about that at all. You talk to any of our clients on SLAs, especially the higher level SLAs, and their networks are running so much better than they ever were before. In fact, I had one client saying to me when we first started, we were in about 6 months into the SLAs, and they actually talked to me and they said, I'm not sure if I'm getting good value for money because we're not really seeing your staff out here very often. We're not really seeing your technical staff come out and do much work, and we're paying this money. What are we getting for it? And I said, well, do you think the reason that we're not seeing many of our staff is because we're maintaining it better than ever before and the system's up? And isn't it a good thing that you're not seeing our staff? And the penny kind of dropped, and it's like, oh wow, do you think all those regular things you're doing, the maintenance you're doing, the proactive arrangement that you've got in place, do you think that's helping my system run better? Of course my answer was obvious, absolutely, positively. I think it definitely makes it run better, and therefore our clients are going to see better uptime. If you've got better uptime, well, you've just seen that you can gain a 78% productivity gain with a well-maintained IT system. If your computers are running, you've got much better chance of your staff being able to perform the work they're meant to do for you, therefore your profits should be better. If you've got downtime, all your systems are down, you're obviously not making a lot of money, depending how reliant you are on your computer systems, but an accountant, a solicitor, someone that's reliant on their computer system, retailers, point of sale, anyone that's really reliant on their computer system to generate money, you're not making money while your system is down. If it's up, therefore, you must be making better profits. We schedule downtime for work that has to be done with your system off when it's convenient to you, not when it crashes. The simplest one that I can think of is email down. Now there's a limitation in a slightly older version of Exchange and an older service pack of 16 gigabytes for how much data you can put into your Exchange server. And a lot of our clients now are hitting that 16 gigabyte limit. Now by doing a couple of things, by applying a service pack, making a few changes, you can increase that limit to 75 gigabytes. So any of our clients on SLAs have had that limit increased already. For a client that doesn't, the classic scenario is they hit their 16 gig limit, email stops. You can imagine what happens then. If email stops, you might as well cut someone's arms off. Email is such an important tool in business now. So then there's an emergency phone call, quick, we're down, get it fixed up for us. And it's not a 5-second job to fix that up. It's actually a relatively lengthy process. It's not about adding more hard drive space, it's the limit within Exchange that actually causes that problem. When we've got an SLA in place, we can identify that you're getting close to a 16 gig limit, or we may have already applied the service pack anyway, but if we identify that you're getting close to that 16 gig limit, we can say to you, looks like you're going to need some maintenance done on your server because you're getting close to this limit. It's going to occur maybe in the next month when you're going to hit that limit. So when's a convenient time in the next month that we can take your server offline for a couple of hours to make a couple of changes to it? Now most clients then will find some time that might be convenient. It might be after hours, it might be on a Friday afternoon that you wanted to take some of your staff down to the pub. You'll find some time that's convenient to prevent having the emergency situation. So it means that it's much more convenient to you. You also get to choose your level of support. If you think Platinum, which I think, if you think Platinum is the level for you, you want that highest level of service, then you can choose Platinum. If you've got someone in your organisation that you think is handling your IT and doing a pretty good basic job, but you want some back-end support, you can choose Silver or even Bronze. So you've got 4 levels. You've got Bronze, Silver, Gold and Platinum. You can choose the level of support that you want dependent upon how important your IT is to you and what your internal IT skills are like. So we're not dictating to you what you must have. You're choosing the system that you think is going to best support you. I've mentioned it a couple of times, I love IT. I love people using IT. I use a BlackBerry, I think it's great. I do web calls to my kids when I'm traveling. I mean, I try and use technology in every possible way I can. I upload videos to YouTube. I'm doing all sorts of things all the time. And I love it when other people are using technology. And it almost makes me sad when we sell someone a new system that can do all sorts of wonderful things. And you talk to them 3 months later and you find that, well, actually, they're not utilising all that technology in the way they should be using it, or they're not utilising all the things they have available to them. So I get a bit kind of sad from an IT perspective about that. I know that the violins sound like they're about to come out any moment. I love it when I go out and talk to clients in consultancy visits. I love it when our staff come back and they've had a consultancy visit or a maintenance check, and they talk about the better ways our clients are using technology. They talk about the maximisation of technology, the maximisation of the features and functions they've got in there. I just think it's fantastic. So you can take advantage of it, and a lot of the times it costs you nothing extra because you've already got everything that you need to take advantage of it. It's just a matter of knowing how to use it. And we even do things like in the platinum arrangements, for every staff member you've got, you get a free half-day training. Now that can be grouped together, so you can give half your staff 1 day training, give a quarter of your staff 2 days training, but we think training your staff is going to make your IT experience much better in that organisation. Most importantly, I think it allows you to free up some extra time to tend to your own business activities. So if you're an accountant, the best thing you can do is be an accountant and charge the ridiculous rate, the $1,000 or $2,000 an hour, $100 or $200 an hour that you might charge to be an accountant. Any organisation or any business that you're in that because you're an expert in that area. So why would you try and be an IT expert when really you're better off outsourcing that to someone else and free up time to just be what you want to be? And the thing that I love saying in AXXIS, the thing that I talk about all the time is, I see our job as to take the pain away from IT. Some people find IT a bit painful, especially when it doesn't work that well. If we can take your pain away and make IT just work for you as it should, then I think we've done a fantastic job for what we could do for you. Let me throw another headline at you. Employees are registering the highest level of job dissatisfaction in years, and experts warn that workplace anxiety is nearing epidemic proportions. And you see this over and over. The more and more business people I talk to, they talk about trying to maintain their staff, trying to retain their staff, trying to keep them happy. There's a constant challenge going on. One of the greatest levels of frustration that people have is with their IT systems. I jumped on a lift. I went down and had a meeting with Intel in Sydney recently, and I jumped on the lift, and it was absolutely perfect. For a meeting with Intel, I couldn't have planned it better. There were 2 women in the lift as we were going up the lift, and they were just chatting to each other. They worked at the same place, and one said to the other one, "Oh, so frustrating when I get into work," and the other one's going, "Oh yeah, of course." And they both knew what they were talking about, and the first one continued on, "Oh, the first thing I do is go and turn my computer on, and then I go off, make my cup of coffee, I come back 10 minutes later, and it probably still hasn't even started up." And the other one's going, "Oh, I think it's 15 minutes before it gets up and going." They had a great deal of frustration at the beginning of the day. Their IT systems weren't even operating within the first 15 minutes of them getting into work. So they wasted, if you like, the organisation's time going and getting a coffee. But you can imagine if someone came along and offered them a job and said, "By the way, we've got a really good IT system," I think those 2 would jump at it because they looked like they were pretty passionate about their job and got frustrated with what they were doing. Again, a lot of people with an internal IT manager just don't have the time to make the system more efficient. They're so busy putting out spot fires, and it's the way it's been done for a long time, and a lot of people continue to do it that way. It reminds me of a story. Many of you would be aware I did a silly thing last year, and I rode a push bike. There's a picture of me there riding a push bike across the Simpson Desert, and it just was a crazy thing to do. Good fun in the end, but a very, very difficult experience. But when we're doing some training, out past Burke on a friend's property. The picture that you see there is actually out when we're doing some of that training. And a group of friends that were out there, and this is just talking about you keep doing the same thing. I mean, you might have an internal IT manager, you keep doing the same thing, you keep getting the same results. And this friend of mine said that every year they jump on a plane from Dubbo, take a few friends out there, they go to their property and go pig shooting. I mean, it's probably not my cup of tea to go pig shooting, but in general, they thought it was a great release, a great way to release some energy, and away they go. And so they do this every year. And they told me about the last year they went out there. went out there, took 4 guys, out they went, ran around all weekend, did their shooting, came back, and they'd actually done a pretty good job this year, and they'd come back with 4 pig's heads. And the guy that flew them out there was ready to take them back again. He's landed. He said, well, let's load up, guys. And he looked and he said, guys, those pig's heads, they're too big. It's going to be too much weight for the plane. So there's a bit of an argument that happened after that, because these guys really wanted to bring back their trophies, because no one would believe them they actually managed to shoot a pig. So they wanted to bring back their trophies and show what they'd been able to do. And the pilot said, no, too heavy. On they went. And finally, you know, what we're like, Aussies, the guy said, last year, we did the same thing, and the guy that picked us up let us put the 4 pig's heads in his plane. And this Aussie, the pilot, he hated to be outdone, so he said, right, that's the story, load them in, off we go. So they're bouncing along, that picture there is on the runway, they're bouncing along the runway, trying to get off the air, and it got about probably 2 or 3 metres up in the air, and it was too heavy. There just wasn't enough power in this little single engine Cessna to get them off the ground. And so they actually ended up kind of doing a half crash land, but hit the ground, ploughed their propeller and their nose into a ditch at the end of the runway, and actually hit the guys' heads hard enough that it knocked them all out. And one of the guys was kind of waking up, and he'd been given a pretty hard knock, and some of the guys had just woken up before him, and he's kind of looking around, he's pretty groggy, and he looked around and he said, where are we? Where are we? And the guy beside him said, actually, you know, I think it's the same place we crashed last year. So if you keep doing the same thing, if you want to keep going on with an internal IT manager and you're not happy with the results you've been getting, keep doing the same thing, you're going to keep getting the same results. It was a famous person who said that the definition of insanity is to keep doing the same thing and expect a different result. So I think we've designed something that's a better way to do it, and I think there's something out there that you can look at. Let's have a look at some client quotes. I've actually put the client names in there. You may be familiar with some of these. So the first one was from an accounting firm. Now, most people would expect an accounting firm to be really focused on saving money, saving money, saving money. This particular client said, the SLA has assisted us in providing increased customer service and has delivered greater productivity and therefore greater profits. So this accountant was quite clever. He realised that the best thing for them to do as an organisation was to have their staff productive, was to have their IT system working, therefore they would deliver greater profits within their organisation. So they were really focused on the productivity and the profits, and they've seen that. They've seen the results they've gotten out of that. Another client, and I love this is a client in Sydney, 400 kilometres from us. They shouldn't be dealing with us. They should be able to find someone in Sydney that can do for them what we're doing. But they couldn't. They wanted someone that had a more proactive, a more productive arrangement, and so they chose us 400 kilometres away. And the nicest thing they've ever said to us is that they value the AXXIS staff members as if they, as in we, were their own team members. So we deliver services to them 400 kilometres away that's the equivalent of their own staff being there on site. We don't go there very often. We don't need to. We can manage their entire network from 400 kilometres away and do an excellent job for them. The third client was one, and it was quite an interesting story. When I went and talked to this particular client the first time, it was a medical practice over in Parkes. And when I spoke to them the first time, they were really frustrated with their current IT provider. Why? Not because they were giving them terrible service, not because the whole system was always failing, but because they never knew how much their IT bill was going to be for the month. And they just found that really frustrating. Some might say that they didn't know whether they could lease their next BMW or Mercedes-Benz, but that might be a bit cynical. I'd say that they just didn't like the idea of getting a random bill. They said the other IT firm that was looking after them used to turn up and used to fix things and seemed to be fairly familiar with their system and seemed to know in general what they were doing, but they just never knew how much it was going to be because they charged on an hourly basis and they charged after all the work was done. When I said to that client, we can give you a fixed monthly fee and deliver services to you for a fixed monthly fee, the same fee every month, they thought that was fantastic. And the last one was a Mitre 10 store in Dubbo. Again, you may be familiar with the client. He actually said to me, well, it was quite funny initially, it was a guy I went to school with, and he'd known me for a long time, and he said to me, this SLA thing, this is just your superannuation. This is your retirement fund. You're just going to get a monthly fee off us and every other client, and that's your retirement fund. He said, when hell freezes over, I'll sign to an SLA. So I took that as a, no, maybe he's interested. And we kept working with him, we kept going down the path. The thing that got him eventually was that one day they had a bit of an interruption in their network. And when one of our technicians went over to fix it up on a, if you like, a break-fix arrangement where something's gone wrong, we'll come and fix it for a fixed fee, they'd found that there were 78 patches missing on his server and 82 patches missing on his workstations. Now, I actually said to that client, rather than charge you our fixed fee to fix up your problem, why don't we give you a free SLA trial for 1 month? And I'm happy to do the same with anyone in the room. I'm happy to give you a free 1 month trial if you want to try it out. It didn't last a month. After about 3 weeks, I got an email from the particular client. It looks like hell just froze over. The idea there is once he could see the value in the SLA, once he was getting things happening, he was getting a weekly report coming through, suddenly he could see what I'd been talking about. And it wasn't my retirement fund, it was something that I believe we could deliver a better service to all of our clients. So what are the summary messages to take away from this? Obviously we'll be around after the talk to talk to you as much as you want to. We can give you some proposals later on. We can talk to you at length, and I really want to just get the messages across. But the summary messages to take away. I believe now, from what I've seen today compared to 19 years ago when I started AXXIS Technology, you as a general client base have higher expectations of your IT system. You don't expect it to fail. You expect it to be like the car I mentioned before. You want to turn it on and start using it. You don't want to have to muck around with it. You have a high expectation of the service and the delivery of your IT system in your organisation. So this is a way for you to be able to have those higher expectations met. IT systems are mission critical. If you're not sure about that, let me come and have a meeting with you, and when we start the meeting, I'll bring a couple of coffees along, we'll start the meeting, I'll go in and I'll just pull the plug on your server. We'll have the meeting, we'll drink our coffee, chat away about SLAs, chat away about things in general, and then at the end of it, maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half, see if you've got many people in your business complaining, see if you've got some staff that are a bit frustrated, see if you've got clients that are unhappy. IT systems now are so much more mission critical than they were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Managed services is a concept that allows you to do a few things in your business. I talked about reducing your downtime. Without a doubt, proactively managing your environment allows you to reduce the amount of downtime that you have in your business. I'm not talking about going and sacking your staff. If you've got someone internal that's an IT manager now, that person can start going and doing some things with your software in a more proactive way. I had one client out of Gilgandra who said to me, once they started being managed by an SLA, the greatest thing he did was then he started investigating software that could service their staff even better. So the manager there didn't go and sack that particular guy. He said, let's utilise you to make the organisation more efficient overall. So you'll be able to maintain your staff levels and, most importantly, improve your business profitability. And business is all about making sure we make a profit. Tough economic times coming up. You want to make sure that you've got a profitable business. I haven't laid off any staff. I don't think anyone in this room has laid off any staff. I don't want to lay off any staff. What I want to do is I want to keep delivering excellent services to all of our clients, and I believe that you want to keep increasing your profitability even if economic times are tough. So managed services will allow you to reduce your downtime, maintain your staff levels, and improve that profitability in your business. And lastly, I think there's an opportunity there for you to capitalise on the revolution. You can be an early adopter, and we're still in that early adopter stage of this type of business model, this type of technology, if you like. So you've got an opportunity to be an early adopter. I think most people in this room, knowing their networks in general, you like to be up to date with your IT, you like your systems to be progressive and modern. You can really capitalise on that revolution, and this is a revolution that's spreading across the world. Again, I've seen competitors in Dubbo already start to pick up on some of the concepts that we use, and it's happening across the world. So thanks for your time. I've been very impressed with what we've done or what you've done in your businesses so far in terms of your IT usage. I've been very happy to be servicing you as an IT provider for, in some cases, a lot of years, and I hope that we can continue on that relationship in a more progressive, more modern, and probably even friendlier environment. So thanks for your time. Our staff will be around for a little while. We'll have some drinks and nibblies as we go afterwards, but it's been great talking to you, and I look forward to talking to more of you individually and signing you all up to SLAs. Thanks.